Hello, everyone. This was a last moment thing. White Engine wanted to do a response video on my channel, which is cool. And we have Inspiring Philosophy back on again for like the fifth time. I'm surprised he seems to like coming on to my channel. But so today we are going to respond to an old video that got flagged actually on Godless Cranium's video, but we're responding to Mirror. And it's Imagine a World Without Religion. And we are going to try and imagine a world without religion, see how it would be like. And we're going to see what his data is for apparently this hypothesis being true. Now, before I screen share, does anyone want to add any commentary before we begin?
I thought it was striking about the video is just how ironic it was, which I'll bring up later, but how little they brought up any scientific data or psychological data or anything regarding a world without religion.
Yeah, and of course you have the papers to back up our claims. But the funniest thing is, if there was no religion, then he would not have his channel. But you know, that's a whole different thing, I guess.
Well, if you want to look at a world without religion and what researchers say, a lot of them would say it would be a hunter-gatherer society, because researchers like Jonathan Haidt and have argued that religion was an adaptation which helped spawn civilization as it is, because it's caused people to gather around sacred objects, which eventually started major metropolis cities over time. If you look at the old, ancient Near Eastern cities, they were pretty much gathered around temples. That was like the center of the city. That was what everyone's focus was on. And so Jonathan Haidt has argued that religion helped spawn civilization as we have it. Without it, we wouldn't be where we are today. We'd probably still be hunter-gatherers. And religion was sort of like, he's an atheist. He says religion was an adaptation. And without it, we wouldn't be where we are.
Religion was still around when there was hunter-gatherers. Like, religion goes back 50,000 years.
Well, he argues more like, that was more like animalism type religious. Like, he's talking more about the old polytheistic forms of God worship sort of thing.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I've read a bit of Darwin's Cathedral by David Sloan Wilson. He's pretty good with this stuff too. He argues that religion is like a multi-level adaptation.
Yeah, whenever I think of like a religion-free society, I think like France during the French Revolution. I mean, I know that's probably like the worst form, but historically that's how it's always played out.
Well, I mean, have you ever noticed that, like, when religion goes and atheism really takes over, feminism and SJWism follows in its suit?
Yeah.
When you don't believe in God, something like the patriarchy tends to be a substitute for it.
Right.
And I guess they do technically gather around sacred objects. They consider Aaron Ra to be a sacred object.
Oh, and Hitchens especially.
Oh, his followers came at us when we on our response to his Atheist Dates video.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, we can get to the video now if you guys want to keep moving on.
Yeah, definitely. We should.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, can we see my screen? Can we see the video?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see it.
Let me know if the volume is too loud or too low. Well, it's actually at max, so. How is that? Is that fine?
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah.
That's good.
Religion in U.S. worth more than Google and Apple combined. That's crazy. That's just in the U.S. Imagine how much it would be worldwide. Faith economy worth $1.2 trillion a year, more than combined revenues of 10 biggest tech firms in America, study shows. Religion in the United States is worth $1.2 trillion a year, making it equivalent to the 15th largest national economy in the world, according to a study. The faith economy has a higher value than the combined revenues of the top 10 technology companies in the U.S., including Apple, Amazon, and Google, says the analysis from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Imagine a world where that money went towards humanitarian aid or medical research.
Do we want to respond to any of this?
Okay, yeah. First of all, the implication seems to be that if religion goes away, that just all goes to medical research. I'd like to know how you can just assume that. And second, a lot of that money that you give to churches goes to humanitarian aid, funding missionary trips and local soup kitchens and charities. I mean, when I lived in Pennsylvania, our church, the church I grew up in, partnered a lot with the Washington City Mission and sending people over there, trying to get people in the church to volunteer and spend time over there. So it's not like it doesn't go to humanitarian aid when you give it to churches. A lot of it does.
Unfortunately, you left Pennsylvania, but I'm still here.
What does he think all the religious charities are all about?
Well, what about Red Cross too? You know, that sort of seems to be a religious thing. You know.
Salvation Army as well.
Oh yeah, Hemet Mehta said Salvation Army shouldn't be acknowledged.
Oh yeah, because you know, it would hurt his political agendas and so on.
And you know,
Well, if you also may add something like even if you assume only 1% of that money goes to charity, which you know is a low ball, that would still be $10 billion.
Definitely.
And that's higher than most charities can ever get to.
And the thing of it is, does he really trust the government to, you know, spend the, you know, distribute the money, you know, to
I don't know if he's saying that. I think he just thinks that if there wasn't no religion, we'd invested in better things. And actually, if you look at the statistical data, no, we wouldn't, because religion increases self-control, ethical behavior. You know, it makes people want to do more charity work.
Right. What I'm saying is that, you know, governments are known to, you know, squander money, you know, so.
Yeah, it's just like it's very likely that if, you know, religion were to go away, a lot of that money would go to more selfish things, because religion actually increases ethical behavior, the willingness to give more of your time to other people and whatnot. It increases things like self-control, inner control of locus, things like this.
Anyone have anything else to add before we move on?
We can move on.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just if you want to stop, then just say stop. If
you'll know when to stop.
Okay.
Imagine a world. Imagine a world. Imagine a world. Imagine a world. Imagine a world where you never read the headline, "Faith Healing Parents Charged with Murder in Death of Premature Twin Baby."
Imagine a world in which you don't see, 36 people were dead, shot at that one church in Texas by the atheist.
Well, this is cherry picking the data.
Let him finish.
Let him finish, and then
Driven by religion, failed to send for medical aid when their newborn baby stopped breathing. The baby died mere hours later. If not for the intervention of the medical examiner, her twin sister may have died as well. This is nothing new. The mother's own sister was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the death of her newborn son. Worse, the majority of states have laws protecting parents and religious leaders from prosecution for child neglect, abuse, or even death for withholding medical care on religious grounds. And abetted by this legal cover, at least 140 children have died of perfectly treatable medical conditions in the United States from 1975 to 1995. Imagine a world without needless suffering from faith healing.
Okay, I actually looked up some numbers on this. So it's total cherry picking of data. For example, the CDC says that there's about 20 to 30 deaths by dog bites every year. So over the course of 20 years, at the minimal, we're talking about 200 deaths. Someone could just change pet ownership with religion. So imagine a world where we don't own pets and people needlessly die from being
I was going to say, I think there's more children who are shot by police every year.
Well, first of all, it is a tragedy that these children die from these nut jobs who are rejecting medical care.
Yeah, I can't stand them either.
Finding marginal cases does not show religion as overall net negative. That's an absurd way to reason. This is such a cherry picking thing.
And there's more people who who drown from unprotected pool coverings and all that.
Yeah, well, it's cherry picking data there. And also, I'd like to see some data that shows that religion actually causes people to reject medical care, not marginal cases.
Well, I mean, if I also add, because I did some I did some numbers on this too myself because I actually went into the data. And when you actually go into the data, like, you know, what they use is the child fatalities from religion motivated medical neglect by Seth Asser. You know, it shows like over a 20-year time span, there was 172 children that died. And when you actually do the math on that, you find out that around 9 children die a year from that. And when you compare that to something like completely preventable pool drownings, you are 80 times more likely to die from like from easily preventable pool drownings than you are of ever dying from from faith healing. And and think about it this way: imagine how many fundamentalist Christians there has to be in America, and only 9 children die a year from it. So I mean, we're looking at like really a fringe of a fringe group of fundamentalist nut jobs. And I mean, what are you going to say about the vegan parents that starve their children to death on a vegan diet? There's going to be
I was going to say
there's going to be needless deaths of children, and no matter what society you live in.
Kids need their protein.
Yeah, it's like I said, you know, it's like I bet there's more kids who are killed by police officers a year than, you know, faith healing.
Well, it still is a tragedy, but there's no data that shows that it's actually intrinsic religiosity, which is leading people to, you know, reject medical attention for their kids.
Well, they'll blame it on the uselessness of prayer or something.
Well, where's the hermeneutics to back it up, though?
Yeah, they need some actually. There needs to be more than that. This seems to be like some pretty fringe fundamentalist views. Is not associated with the majority of religious people. There's
Apostle Luke was a physician.
Well, I mean, hell, it's even worse than that. It's not just like even a majority, like a minority of Christians. It's a minority of even the minority of fundamentalist Christians.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can be a fundamentalist and still not believe in faith healing, but believe in every other crazy other thing.
Oh,
Well, Luke was a physician, though.
Well, I mean, faith healing itself is bad. You don't just rely on that. That's ridiculous. That's like relying on Reiki.
Well, I think we should address praise IAM's point that in Christianity you have Luke, who is a physician, and geez, if God chose Luke to write a gospel, who is a physician, and it seems like that he is fine with medical care.
Right.
In Christendom,
Paul told Timothy, for example, Paul told Timothy to have a little bit of wine for his frequent stomach ailments as well.
And why would God create doctors if it didn't want us using them?
And Christendom has a huge history of, you know, backing up medical professionals and establishing medical centers. Like some of the very first hospitals were established in the Middle Ages by Christian clergy.
What just happened?
Oh yeah, we're good. I think we can move on now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already losing brain cells as it is just looking at this picture.
Okay, we'll move on. Vegetarian. Okay.
Imagine a world where the bigots had to admit their gay hatred is their own idea. They can't say it's not them, it's just their God's commands. Imagine a world with no religious arguments against gay marriage, where nobody was stoned or beheaded just for being queer. Imagine a world where nobody had to be ashamed to reveal their true self. Imagine a world with no religion.
Imagine.
So how many people in America were stoned to death from being gay this year?
About a few 100,000.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, first of all,
you know the Christians are horrible. Now let's support the Muslims in the Middle East. Well,
disagreeing with gay marriage does not mean you hate gay people. This is just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, the writing on a shirt said vegetarian, not vegetarian.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Right. It's like where's the evidence for this? As you'll see later, I think there's just so much irony in this video.
Forgetting
lack of evidence.
If I also may bring something up, like atheists seem to make it seem like Christians are the only people that have an unnatural hatred for gay people. But when you actually look at the nestpick.com's article that goes into the best LGBT cities, guess what is voted the last place? Like the worst place to be if you're gay.
Where?
China. You know,
Atheist China.
not necessarily your most Christian-friendly nation. And when you actually look into it, like places like China, South Korea, non-religious places of Russia, they all have they all have like high numbers of discrimination against.
You mean North Korea, right?
Oh no, South Korea too.
South Korea? Wow.
Well, you know, in the former Soviet Union, or the Soviet Union, yeah, it was like I believe it was a crime to be found with homosexuality, and it was penalized by up to 7 years in the Gulag.
I don't think there's any law. I don't think mainstream Christians are advocating for laws that homosexuality should be outlawed. I mean, Christians don't agree with adultery, but we're not advocating that it should be outlawed.
She's referring to the verses in Leviticus and stuff like that.
Verses.
Well, I mean, that was written for a theocratic government.
Well, yeah, and that covenant was fulfilled in Christ. It no longer applies in the new covenant. The new covenant is about, as Paul says in Galatians 5:14, all the laws son have been love thy neighbor as thyself. So it's you're absolutely right. It's part of the Israeli theocratic government.
Point to Sodom and Gomorrah, but sodomy was their way of asserting their dominance.
And Ezekiel 16 says sodomy was destroyed because it didn't help the weak and the poor. That's why they were destroyed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you actually look at the verses in context, it says, if a man lies with another man, shall be stoned. Well, now that we have marijuana laws, it looks like this thing is going to come to fruition.
Okay.
All in all, I was just going to say, all in all, I mean, you can disagree with gay marriage but not thinking politically it should be outlawed. You can have different views about it. I don't agree with adultery, but I don't think it should be outlawed.
I don't condone it, but I'm not against it either.
There's many different cultures around the world. There's many different cultures, like non-Abrahamic religions that also aren't too big on homosexuality.
Well, they never talk about religion overall.
And in real life, I met more homophobic atheists than religious ones.
Well, I mean, who knows? But I mean, I don't have enough time in my day to worry about what other people are doing in the privacy of their own home. As long as they're consenting adults. Politically, I don't care.
Yeah, there's also other reasons, non-religious reasons, like disappointment that your only son, depending on who it is, your only son's
you might care though.
Not going to be able to pass on your genes and all that. And
STDs are a big problem though. You have to care to a point though.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is that many different cultures around the world, they feel like this whole LGBT thing is being pushed on their culture, and that's in turn pushing their culture out into the private, scene. And many cultures don't want to do that. I was reading an article out of I think it was out of Cambodia, and there was this incident where these two like transsexual men wanted to be Asparas. Asparas are like beautiful dancing women who it's like an ancient, mystical dance that usually beautiful women do. So these transsexual men were trying to be Asparas, and it like caused a huge uproar in Cambodia because that's a no-no, and people were wondering why is this country that's never been quote unquote overtly homophobic so against this. Well, it has a lot to do with their cultural value too. They feel like this is the Western way of, or they feel like this is the West pushing their values onto them.
Well, I mean, I think we can move on at this point.
Right.
A world without religious wars, without violent acts of terrorism rooted in brainwashed indoctrination, where we unite to build a world worth living in, rather than suicide bombing a crowd to escape it. Imagine a world in
I think that's more attacking Islam, if anything.
Yeah, that's, and we obviously won't.
You look at the Encyclopedia of Wars, and just look at even all the wars since then. You add them all together, and only a small percentage are entirely religion driven.
Yeah, to clarify, it was Vox Day who, the Encyclopedia of Wars doesn't actually say that. Vox Day went through, and in his book, he actually lists all the war. He actually went through the entire encyclopedia and did all that research. So I want to give him credit for that. But his name is Vox Day, and he actually went through and did the percentages based on the Encyclopedia of Wars. But yeah, it's
You mean
a very,
Axelrod?
very small percentage.
Is it Axelrod?
Yeah.
What?
Philip and Axelrod.
Yeah, yeah.
Their 3-volume Encyclopedia of War. It listed 1,763 recorded wars in human history, and only 6.98% are religious wars, and they only account for 2% of all the war deaths. So, yeah, they don't really have a leg to stand on this. And when you actually do look on religiosity and peacefulness, you do find that there's a positive correlation. So this whole notion that being indoctrinated and stuff leads to these horrible events is null and void.
Well, yeah, and there's also been many instances of anti-religious violence too. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of the La Cristiada in Mexico, or the Vendée Revolt in France during the French Revolution. Those are both
Anti-religious conflicts that have done more damage and taken and ruined more lives than religion ever did combined.
I was going to say, in the Vendée Revolt, you had the French Revolutionary government put down the Catholic rebellion by sending in death squads known as internal columns, and they basically ransacked entire villages and burned the Vendée to the ground and destroyed churches and whatnot, and killed believers.
All right, we can probably move on.
Okay.
Didn't claim jurisdiction over the experience of others based on what they've taken on faith.
What is he talking about?
Oh, all religion, all the 3,000 different gods, even though if you take Hinduism into account, it's a lot more. So if they actually wanted to increase that argument, then they should actually do more research. But basically, every superstition, supernatural belief is just based on no evidence. So
That's a category fallacy anyway.
But he said jurisdiction over others. What evidence does it show?
And it works the other way around. Like
when I refer to Islam and stuff like that.
It also works. Like, for instance, I would also turn around and say that that atheist preacher that used to be a drooling idiot of a fundamentalist, Dan Barker, like, he wrote in his book and he tried to psychologize other people's religious experiences based on his own. Like, that was all me. That was just my brain, fuzzy feelings inside. There was no Holy Spirit and all that. And he used that to apply to others.
Yeah, it doesn't. He didn't really actually show anything that religion causes you to take jurisdiction over others. There's no data which shows that either. Surprise, surprise.
Well, he also, what you also didn't mention is obviously, since irrationality drools, he uses of course the new atheist dictionary definition for faith, which is a blind conviction in something that obviously isn't true.
Right, and that's actually a redefinition of faith too.
I feel like pulling a tecton on him, but Mr. Spark already did that.
Well, faith historically was always your social obligation pre-Enlightenment era, but the Enlightenment thinkers revisionize that.
You even got atheists, even Bart Ehrman doesn't fall for that. He's an atheist New Testament scholar, and in his book on page 178, entitled Apocalyptic Prophet, he says, "But trust in God, or faith, as it is usually translated, is related not just to the future, but to the present as well." I'd also like him to know that, not at one time does it say to believe on blind evidence. And in fact, in Acts 2:22 through 36, Peter appealed to the miracles, the empty tomb, and the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy.
Well,
they did not believe on blind evidence.
Yeah, and you also have Jesus himself demonstrating miracles to back up his claims, and then you have 1 Corinthians 15 and so on. So I can speak for Christianity that it's not based on blind faith and with no evidence. I don't know about other religions, but that I can speak on.
The whole idea that faith is just blind. Like I said, that's an Enlightenment invention. Pre-Enlightenment, that's not what faith always meant.
Well, let's talk about something that's a blind faith, just a lack of belief. When you just define your proposition as that, then literally someone in a coma could be an atheist, and if they're supposed to be more rational, then they have literally no reason to believe what they believe. And let's also, if you want to define atheism as just a lack of belief, then literally every religious person that you define as an atheist is an atheist, and you can just blame atheism for every evil act ever that they're complaining about. But
and theism is lack of belief that there's no higher power.
Atheism would be lack of belief.
Well, here's what's funny about this: like they, for the whole lack of belief thing, like it makes no even promises on God. Like it can't be the negation of theism because it doesn't even put God into the question. It just
It's an
shows,
emotional.
it just talks about their psychological state.
Yeah. First, they're defined as lack of belief, and when you point out rocks and stuff can be atheists, and they say, "Well, no, it's someone who lacks a belief." Okay, you're still not helping yourself, but we should probably move on, unless anyone else has anything to add on. We get to move on.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Imagine a world where L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, would have never been born. Therefore, we would have never been introduced to such a stupid, illogical, dumb belief system. But instead, this would be over $1.75 billion. This money, if L. Ron Hubbard would have never been born, could have easily went into scientific endeavor for kids, for school of reasoning, philosophy, and logic. But too bad. That would be a good world to imagine.
Scientology is an atheist religion, you idiot.
No. They actually do believe in some higher power. They call it like the.
Well, they don't.
No, Xenu is the villain.
They call it like the eighth dynastic, or I don't remember exactly. But
Yeah,
they believe in some sort of like pantheistic type sense. But
I'll find aliens.
Like Buddhism, they believe in something supernatural, but may not be God, perhaps.
It's not part of the religion, though, per se. I mean, it's not part of the practice of the religion. So, like, they'll say, like, you can be an atheist and be a Scientologist. You can be a Lutheran and be a Scientologist. They're just trying to get as many members as they can because they're an organization on money.
We could probably agree with Emperor Atheist, and because Scientology is a pretty stupid religion.
Yeah, it is.
If I can actually bring up something, I can probably bet that even Scientologists give more money to charity than atheists do.
Oh, maybe, probably.
Well, we don't. Here's the thing. We don't know because Scientologists are so well controlled by their group heads that no one has been able to really study them in a lot of the studies that I've gone over before my debate recently. So we don't know because it's such a cult. They're so well controlled. They never let their members do any of these sorts of studies or let scientists look at them in any kind of like experimental data. So we don't have any psychological data or sociological data on them.
I know that Rallianism is an atheistic faith, so to say. It's a weird UFO religion that doesn't believe in God but believes we were created by aliens. So
Yeah, Dawkins does.
Well, to be quite fair, I mean, Scientology to me is somewhat more believable than Mormonism.
Oh,
I would disagree.
No, they at least they sort of affirm Christ and so on and believe in God.
But they believe after Jesus died and rose from the dead that he went to America.
Well, of course, Mr. Brass doesn't believe that, but that's a whole different.
Well, whatever. Let's just move on.
Technically, if that did happen and Jesus did go to America, technically, wouldn't he be an illegal immigrant?
But that's before the U.S. existed as a country, so.
Well, based on Gaulless engineer, Jesus never even existed, so we can trust his sources. Milwaukee atheist, even though IP actually gave scholarly sources, and he accused him.
And that unemployed blogger is a credible scholar.
Richard Carrier.
The Ken Ham of atheism.
Yeah. Okay, we can move on. Apologia here.
A world where nothing said or written was taken on the authority, the speaker or writer, where every claim was accepted only proportionally to the supporting evidence, where such evidence and the interpretation was continually challenged and therefore improved, where the support for the claims was not only readily available to everyone, it was frequently accessed by everyone.
Okay. This is the most ironic clip in the whole thing. This is the most ironic clip. Like, okay, yeah, let's not take your authority. Why aren't you guys citing any sort of data or studies to show that a world would be better without religion? We're just supposed to take it on all your authorities that religion should go away and society would be better. This is the most ironic clip of this whole video.
Well, what's also... Oh, go ahead. Whoever was going.
Well, yeah, and they're still using they're still using the whole Enlightenment concept of what faith was, not what faith historically had been prior to the Enlightenment. So...
Well, it seems like the Enlightenment was run by people like Descartes, Leibniz, Spinoza, Capernaum, and so on, who are all theist Christians, deists, believe in the supernatural being, and so on, and who started these universities where you can test these claims in science itself.
Voltaire. Well, I mean, if I may also interject, he's kind of advocating for like scientism because because of the whole testing your claims and stuff like that. There is actual fields of outside of science that we can't really apply the same standard to.
Yeah, and the universe
like morality, for instance, can't be proven scientifically.
Right.
Yeah.
But we definitely assume it.
I think it's more along talking about being
logic
minded and so on, which.
And I also find it funny because you honestly think in science there is no authority.
Government
says nothing. Scientists do so.
Oh yeah, I got a quote. There's a quote from G.K. Chesterton. For the modern world will accept no dogmas upon any authority, but it will accept any dogmas based on no authority.
Yeah.
The whole clip is just ironic, considering they're not even citing data that religion, if it goes away, will be better for society. Because all the meta-analysis data shows the opposite. So why would they?
Yeah.
Atheism is a religion, though. If you really want to get down to it,
it's a worldview, a belief system. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can move on now.
Way beyond a lack of belief. At least the new atheism does.
Yeah, they have convictions. They got big convictions.
Oh yeah. And I've done a video. I'm pretty sure showing that atheism is a worldview. And it's my most commented video. We can move on here.
I imagine a world without religion. I don't necessarily imagine a perfectly peaceful world. What I do imagine, however, is a world where we are living in a reality where people are killing over their imaginary friends every single day. I don't imagine a world where people would always have reasonable discussions despite a difference in ideas. But what I do imagine is a world where people aren't scared for their lives when they criticize or
at least they're actually citing stuff now.
Excuses for extremists because someone offended their religion. Imagine a world without organized religion, particularly Islam. A world where freedom of ideas doesn't mean a risk to human lives every single day.
It seems like more of an attack just on Islam.
Prove your extraordinary claim that people are killing over their imaginary friends every single day.
I think Islam is a lot more probable than atheism, so it'll come down to Christ, obviously, but at least
I think Scientology is somewhat more probable than atheism.
Yeah. Well, if it's just your psychological state, then flat earthism, that's not even a word, but still is more probable.
I say that as out of snark. They're saying now, are you a flat earther too? I'm like, flat earth is still more reasonable than atheism.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, it's at least a proposition.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
no,
I think she's more intense.
I just say that.
I know, it's just something to irritate them.
Well, the thing of it is, they mentioned terrorism. Terrorism historically was, politically motivated. It was usually by, communists in the Cold War, and it's only recently that we have the rise of radical jihadist terror groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda.
Well, that's a whole different conversation concerning.
Well, I also like to point out the fact that a lot of the religious violence that we see in the Middle East and stuff all stems from the fact that secular governments trying to enforce themselves onto these places and end up putting in bad dictators into it.
Yeah, like the Soviets in Afghanistan.
Islam is connected, but it is not the only variable in a lot of these terrorism.
No, they act like Islam has a monopoly on terrorism.
We're not saying all Muslims are terrorists. We're just simply saying.
Well, all terrorists.
No, well, there was one atheist that said not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists.
Yeah, they all say that. No, I mean, no one's saying that, of course.
It's not even.
I mean, doesn't really matter. I'm not going to support Islam either way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I also like to make that like people, will fight over. People will use anything to justify their bad behavior.
Yeah.
And even in a world without religion, people would still kill each other over political ideas and would kill each other over any sorts of stupid things in order to get their way and not to have their ideas challenged.
I don't need to tell you there's whole nations in Africa fighting each other in the name of ethnic cleansing.
Right. So we can move on now.
Yeah. Well, this is gonna be another video on Islam, so.
No, I want to comment on this one.
Okay.
Imagine a world without hijab, where you can see the wind blow through an Iranian girl's luscious, beautiful hair. Or at least imagine a world without niqab, where you can brush your hand across her smooth skin on her face.
This guy is a
Or
creep.
at least imagine a world without burqa, so at the very least, you can see her eyes. Or better yet, how about imagine a world without Islam?
Okay, someone needs to tell this guy that removing religion doesn't mean he gets to molest Iranian girls. This
I was
is
going to
really
say,
creepy.
historically, that's how it's been in Iran. I mean, they didn't have the whole hijab thing enforced up until the 1979 revolution. Historically, Iran was, very, it was religious, but, it had, it wasn't theocratic until you had, the whole CIA and MI6 overthrow their democratically elected leader, Mossadegh.
Yeah, but I would like a world where beautiful women like that didn't have to cover themselves in black.
I agree.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm just saying, why does he have to do it so creepily?
They'll say Christianity does too, though.
Well, I mean, here's the thing that I don't wait.
But it's a straw man argument anyway.
Well, I mean, here's the thing that people don't really take into consideration. Like, what if the girl wants to dress like that? Doesn't she not have the right to?
Well,
to,
in some cases they don't have the right to. They're forced to.
Well, I know that. Like, I know that, and that I would think that is messed up. But I'm saying, like, what about the case? Because he's making it seem like that's always the case. When that isn't always the case, some women choose to dress like that of their own, free will, per se.
Yeah.
So I mean, would he seriously be saying like, that a woman shouldn't have the right to decide what she wants to wear?
Right.
Yeah, but most of their misogyny it wasn't even their own ideas. A lot of that was from Aristotle.
Right, and it's kind of like how in Eastern Europe you have the babushka, who they're older women who cover themselves up to show modesty.
Well, if I can point out one bad thing about wearing a burqa, though, it makes getting a DMV license pretty hard.
And the sun, they need 10 minutes of sunlight a day on average, and they're deprived of all that vitamin D they need.
Yeah. So we
What are your responses though? Of an atheist say that Christianity imposes that too. What do you guys say about that?
Well, I would like. Oh yeah, no, they're going to talk about
the veil over the head or whatever. I mean, I've done apologetics with. I know the answer. But what do you guys say about that?
Okay, well, the covering the head thing in 1 Corinthians is actually connected to a weird belief in ancient Greece regarding the women's hair. For Michael Heiser talks about this in one of his books. I think it's Reversing Herman, where in ancient Greece, they believed hair was connected to semen. So if you had longer hair, it would pull semen out of your body. If you had shorter hair, you would have more semen. So women in ancient Greece had to keep hair long, men had to cut their hair short. Because of that, a lot of people in ancient Greece thought hair was sexual. Go figure. So they thought it was part of the female sexual reproductive system. So they would cover their heads because it would entice men because they would be thinking about sex. So Paul's just saying, basically all Paul is saying, cover what you think is your genitals. That's all he's pretty much saying.
Wow, interesting. Never heard that before.
Such an enlightened, such an enlightened scientific world before the big bad Christians ruined everything.
Well, I mean, also Lucy Peptet in their book Woman in Worship in Corinth, she also says that this could also just be the case of Paul quoting back a Corinthian view.
Yeah.
Well, it is a Corinthian view. That's the point. It is a Corinthian view. They thought that the female head was part of her sexual reproductive system.
I think there's a spiritual application as Christ is the covering over their head. I can show you guys a verse for that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, to go back to what IP said, I mean, semen and hair is pretty much is connected with all these guys.
Well,
Yeah,
let's move on.
And there's also that verse in Timothy where it says that women that Adam sinned first, and then Eva became the sinner, and then
Well, Romans 5 talked about the fall, if that's what you're referencing.
the fall. That women are naturally subjugated to men and all that. It said that the women should be quiet in church and all that shit.
No, they blame the man too, though. Paul did. He blamed Adam for it.
Yeah.
Well, Christianity, the old person religion, we're all fallen and we can't get up.
I've fallen, I can't get up.
Well, let's get going.
Yeah, we can move on to the four corners of the earth to learn hermeneutics, but
imagine a world where no one spends precious time and money on treatments of disease which are not evidence-based. Countless lives are lost every year because people fall victim to pseudoscientific practices that just simply don't work. Often, these practices are based on beliefs involving the supernatural. Regardless of their origin, though, practices without an evidential basis are dangerous when relied upon as medical treatment. As a result, effective treatments are disregarded, and fatal diseases are allowed to run their full course, ultimately tearing grandparents from their grandkids, tearing mothers and fathers from their children, and in strokes of the cruelest form of cosmic injustice, tearing children from all those who cherish them above all else. Envision a reality where no belief in pseudoscience or the supernatural, which allow for such offenses to humanity, exist. And ask yourself, would such a reality be one with fewer atrocities in favor of greater health and happiness? Doing this, you take the first step in making that reality our very own.
I like where he tries to play armchair philosophy near the end.
Yeah, it's like, is there any data which shows that religion actually leads to pseudoscience, or are those two variables? As far as I've seen, they're clearly
historically, it's the other way around.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you look at this way, like, according to Dr. Rodney Stark's paper entitled "What Americans Really Believe," it actually turns out that traditional Christian, the traditional Christian religion decreases belief in superstitious things.
Right.
Like there was also reading and astrology.
Yeah,
and
there was
found
also
that 31% of the irreligious expressed strong belief in the occult and paranormal, compared to only 8% of those who attend church more than once a week.
Right. There was also an article out of the Wall Street Journal that they mentioned the same evidence. The article was titled "Look Who's Irrational Now," and it was about all the stuff he said too, and that Rodney Stark said too. So.
Well, yeah, ironically, the meta-analysis on cancer patients, I cited in my debate with Dillhunty, shows that religion actually increases the physical health of cancer patients. So if there's any connection between what's going on here and religion is actually beneficial for people suffering with cancer. I've not found no study which shows intrinsic religiosity increases beliefs in pseudoscientific practices.
Well, I mean, also, like, even the skeptic Martin Gardner noted in his 1983 book, The Whys of a Philosophical Scrivener, he referenced a 1980 study which showed irreligious college students were way more likely to embrace paranormal beliefs over born-again Christian college students. So
well, send me that study. I'd like to read it.
You know, so I mean, if the argument is like without religions like Christianity, then like, you know, we wouldn't believe in these superstitious things, you're just dead wrong, because it actually shows the other way around.
I think in medieval, during the High Middle Ages, the Catholic Church ruled against many of the old pagan superstitions like witchcraft, sorcery, and magic, which all those things didn't come back until like the Renaissance.
Well, History of Medieval Worlds is a good book on that. They note that when early Christians started to get more popularity, they would just you'd hear something like, "Oh, this man can fly." They would just dismiss it as being unscientific. You're right, absolutely right. It wasn't until the book is History of Medieval Worlds, and he talks about that. Early Christians were very scientific. If they would like, for example, there's one story of of Odin and whatnot. They said if you chop down this tree, Odin will kill you with lightning, and so he did, and nothing happened. happen, because he's like, that wouldn't happen. So I really enjoyed reading it. He covered a lot of interesting things. But yeah, the superstitious didn't really start to rise. As C.S. Lewis notes about this, the superstitious and things like astrology and alchemy did not start to come back until the Renaissance. The myth of this Dark Age period is an atheist myth invented in the 1900s.
Yeah, but
Actually, they just came out with a study where atheists make up fairy tales against their reality. Did you guys see that?
I've heard of that.
No, send me it. I like to read it.
I've heard of that one.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is.
Well, let's move on.
Imagine a world where people gave serious thought to questions of why we feel wonder and awe, and why we consider some actions moral and others immoral, where we continue to plumb the depths of using what we learn to make ourselves and society better, instead of just deciding they're all inevitably spiritual concepts that had to come from God.
I'd like to note that this guy's like a downgraded version of Logic.
First of all, why
Yeah,
why is it either we have to have logical good questions or they're spiritual? That is such a false dichotomy. I mean, did this guy ever actually read any books on metaethics?
You'll never find a more glass half empty group of people than anti-theists. That we're all just universe is 99.99% uninhabitable. We're all just insignificant specks of an uncaring universe filled with random tragedy.
In regards to the metaethical questions, it's not like theistic philosophers have not spent countless pages asking questions about morality, about grounding for morality, about what morality is. And we can have good, meaningful questions about this, especially in things like applied ethics or normative ethics, while still agreeing that there could be an ontological foundation.
See,
if I can interject, I could say that. Yeah, I mean, I can already give you the atheist answers typically for all of these. Love is just a chemical reaction in your brain that compels species to breed. Morality is just a human concept, that's helped us survive, sociobiological evolution and personal taste. Morality is subjective. There is no right and wrong. Love is a chemical reaction in your brain. Case closed. Atheist wins.
Oh, and apparently we have no free will, and colors are...
Well, Mr. Brass doesn't believe in free will.
Oh, yeah, and colors are an illusion.
What were you going to say, JM?
I was just going to say, I love you so much, IP or Mike, because you bring up meta-ethics, but that's clearly above their level. I love how you take their questions seriously, but I don't think you have to go that far.
Well, maybe I'm nicer. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can have good conversations about this. Well, I mean, we can have good conversations. It's just a false dichotomy to assume that either everything's spiritual or everything should have a good logical question. It's like, come on. Have you read any theistic philosophers that write in metaethics?
Well, I mean, if you also look into it, I loved IP's video where he went into the Alvin Plantinga's argument against naturalism, and a naturalistic argument against evolution,
evolutionary argument against naturalism is his argument.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. I liked how when Craig applied it in his debate, where if that argument is true, then we also can't trust our moral beliefs. As wouldn't it be possible that our moral beliefs are wrong, but they just happen to be useful for survival?
Yeah, this guy did a video debunking Lane Craig.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It seems that whenever an anti-theist makes a video about him, they can't go 10 minutes without calling him names.
Or actually representing what he's actually saying.
Well, I actually pointed that out in the video where he actually did go over Craig. For one, his video, immediately, it's titled like a derogatory name. So he shows already from the get-go that he's not professional and actually going to take him seriously. And throughout the entire thing, he attributes attitudes and behaviors to Craig that he doesn't even show in the conversation.
Keep in mind, I have mixed opinions on Lane Craig, but
me too.
Yeah, and as much as Cosmic Skeptic's a good guy, he does have a habit of strawman the hell out of him.
Well, they all do, especially when they try to refute the Kalam cosmological argument. A lot of them will actually get the first premise right. Everything that begins to exist has a cause, but they'll interpret that to mean everything needs a cause, therefore everything has a cause.
Well, I mean, like, can I actually, I actually went over this with my Essence of Thought video, where a lot of the objections, like
Essence of sophistry.
He said the same damn objection that everyone else has said, and that William Lane Craig debunked years ago. Like, he said, that it commits the compositional fallacy.
Oh my! There's literally a video where he objects to the 10 worst objections, and there are all these YouTube atheist objections, and his responses are just hysterical.
Well, yeah, I mean, let me give you an atheist objection to the Kalam argument. Well, if everything needs a cause, then God needs a cause.
That's not it. Even if you accept...
There's a good article.
Oh, go ahead.
Even Common Sense. There's a good article in Common Sense Atheism, which debunks that everything needs a designer argument.
Yeah.
So they don't even like it. They think it's a stupid argument.
Isn't that what you refer to in Who Created God video?
Yeah, I referred to it. But yeah. We can move on whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Oh, and where nobody claims there can't possibly be secular answers to these questions, just because they themselves chose to stop thinking about them.
Well, that's like the God of the Gaps argument, right there.
Yeah. Whatever. Let's move on.
Yeah.
This guy's a nasty piece of work.
I don't even know who he is.
Nightmare fuel. Anti-apologist.
Well, okay.
Religion. Religious messages have been so normalized. People will take on very baggage-heavy labels as a default. Out of peer pressure, it's what's expected of them to do, even if they don't truly believe. And thus, undue reverence is given to ideas that are as equally absurd as any other mythology we have left far behind us. This normalizing of religion is the stagnation in society. And this prevents an honest, critical dialogue from actually happening. Imagine we could strip all of the emotion out of these arguments, all of the heritage, all of the baggage, and debate the ideas based solely on their merit. We would have won already.
Any evidence that the stagnation of society is caused by religion? Any
citation, please?
Well, hold on. It's going to be like, oh, well, you can't think of a secular answer, so you're appealing to ignorance, even though it would be like a Prophets of Zod's, just the last response there.
Well, also, he said that like people taking on religion is like a label. Okay, that's actually intrinsic. That's not intrinsic religiosity. That's extrinsic religiosity. People just becoming part of a religion, part of a social group. That actually does cause bad. I wish extrinsic religiosity would go away, because it actually has been shown in studies to have caused negative effects. But intrinsic religiosity always has the opposite effect.
Well, I mean, if I also may include, like, if we're going to go this whole route that people just accepting labels because of like the society they came from, even though they don't truly believe it, I mean, we can get rid of politics, because I know plenty of people that only identify as a Democrat or Republican because of the fact that they grew up in a Democratic or Republican home.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. It's socialization.
So, I mean, if we're going to use that argument that, that's a stagnation, I mean, what will have a bigger effect on your life? People that like claim to be a Christian simply because of where they live, or people that claim to be a Democrat simply because of their heritage?
Again, as I was just at, he needs evidence to show that religion is stagnating society, and of course they don't have any. We're just supposed to take it on their authority.
Well, we're supposed to take it on faith as they define it.
Yeah.
Religion must be killed off to progress humanity, as the communists used to say.
Yeah, it's not a lot of difference there, unfortunately. But yeah, let's move on.
All right, let's do it.
Imagine a world in which people didn't pretend to know things that they can't possibly know.
Atheist.
Then why do you?
Why are all of them doing it right now? They're all pretending they know religion is bad, even though they presented no evidence that religion is causing terrible effects in society. It's like it's one of the most ironic clips in the whole video.
They pretend to know that religious people are deluded and that there's no good reason to believe there's God. There's no evidence for God.
Yeah, even if we say there is no evidence for God, their conclusion that therefore he doesn't exist is just non sequitur, because agnosticism is more probable that we cannot be certain either way. So they are pretending to know things, and Rationality Rules himself admitted that you can disprove and prove negatives. Deflating Atheism just showed that in his response videos. So
we call him rationalizing atheism, because that's a more accurate term.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, but he obviously doesn't take these things into account when he.
Well, he at least tries to be substantiated, but there's nothing rational about the man.
Also, he didn't show any evidence that religion causes people to believe in things without evidence. Again, we need actual data to see that. I
like how he accused you of lying without presenting any evidence.
Yeah.
Well, he also didn't know the difference between fatalism and determinism.
That was hilarious. When he did his response video, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so happy right now. I'm going to write this blog response in less than an hour, and I did. It was so fun.
You should have humiliated.
And he tried to pull an ad hominem by calling you SP.
Yeah, well, I've never heard that one before. That's so cute. I mean, come on, guys. I don't really engage in the name calling, as you guys know, so I would really refer to him.
Well, you're more professional than all of us, so.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Red Pill takes their attitudes and throws it back in their faces.
I don't engage in that, but whatever. I don't think he ever responded to that blog post, so whatever.
No, of course not. Well, he's the type of guy who puts presuppositions. Oh, I debunked this, so I don't actually have to respond to any responses.
Oh yeah, he has to do. He tries to debunk absolutely everything that doesn't fall in line with materialism. And he never once questions Harris. I once asked him, "Are you going to debunk Sam Harris yet?" He's like, and I get this deer in the headlights reaction.
Yeah, we can just move on to this guy who's like the ninja version of logic.
Religious moral authorities. When faced with an action that conflicts with our conscience, we tend to rationalize it to avoid the mental conflict between doing something bad and being a decent person. One way being to project the responsibility onto an authority. If there were no morally authoritative religions in the world, then people wouldn't have the option to shunt responsibility onto an intangible, infallible, unchallengeable moral authority. Knowingly harmful action.
Well, that's what objective morality is by definition.
Couldn't be excused by obeying the will of God. Of course, this isn't applicable to all religions nor all religious people. And of course, there'd still be harmful acts and human authorities to appeal to. But no human authority is intangible, and any would be infinitely less infallible and unchallengeable than the moral commandments that are held with conviction to be the decree of God.
Someone needs to tell the guys over Relay Theology that they don't believe in an intangible moral law. Well, because there are non-natural moral realists like Thomas Nagel, Kai Nelson, Ruth Schaefer-Landau. I mean, the guys over Relay Theology.
I think you said theist there. Did you say theist? Because obviously Thomas Nagel is an atheist.
Thomas Nagel is an atheist. I'm talking about an atheist.
Yeah, he's at least honest with himself. He's starting to figure out that there might be a God after all. He said once, Why is it that I so not want there to be a God?
Well, I mean, morality, you can have an intangible moral law and still be an atheist. It's called non-natural moral realism. There's many atheists that are now.
Well, yeah, like 66%
atheist philosophers.
Like 66% of philosophers hold to moral realism.
I thought it was 56.
A lot of them are atheists. Well, either way, it's a majority.
Yeah, it is a majority.
And a lot of them are atheists.
Yeah, I have to study up on moral realism.
Well, if you're a feminist, you believe in something that's intangible, unchallengeable, and dogmatic. The patriarchy. And here's the thing, people, we generally they make it seem like religion is the only thing, that we have unrealistic expectations for to hold it to a higher standard or something sacred like that. But if you look at things like communism as itself as an idea is not disprovable in a way. It can only be shown to not be effective, and people hold that to sacred regard and justify their actions with it.
Well, people have all sorts of sacred ideas they hold in high regard, and that everything must conform to that. That's typical with human nature. I don't.
Well, I mean, as
it's-
you all know, we don't. I mean, as you all know, like we have no free will, so we have no moral responsibility.
right.
So,
Well,
so, I
also
mean-
it's
Oh man,
It's
maybe
also-
Mr. Brass, but
also, it's projecting the idea that it's bad to have a moral authority. So it's just the implication is moral relativism is better. No, it's not. That leads to that opens the door to serious consequences.
Well, the thing of it is, many atheists they believe in the old motto, "No God, no kings." I think it is.
No gods, no
Yeah,
kings.
no God. Yeah, yeah, and so that's what they
so
believe.
it just-
Then you
Well, it
got
looks like you're-
then you got the Ayn Rand philosophy where selfishness is a virtue.
Right.
well, yeah, hedonism, and well, it looks like IP's best friend is on here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah.
Oh.
You
Christ
got,
Mither who doesn't know how virtual particles work.
hey,
let's be
IP,
nice.
are you ready to get refuted again?
Oh yeah, here we go.
But yeah, one guy in the comments said you should go to jail because you raped him.
What?
In a
What?
debate.
Let's try to be
That
nice,
IP
sir.
should be-
That's ridiculous.
IP should be in jail because he raped GE. I don't know. It's probably something.
That just puts terrible images in my
am
mind.
actually.
Let's not do that.
I don't care about jokes, but rape jokes, that's where I'm getting.
Yeah, I don't
No.
like rape jokes.
Yeah.
But I understand your point though.
All right, let's just watch.
Reverence isn't used as a shield for pedophiles, so that they can be recirculated and defined.
Well, let me just state though, he must be talking about this after his debate with IP.
It was before. It's recorded 6 months ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was simply a joke.
Okay, but
I'm sorry.
I agree with what he said.
What was
I
it?
agree with what he said. I hate the fact that I think pedophiles should be castrated or killed, but I mean
Or both.
there's no evidence that intrinsic religiosity causes that. That's other variables that have been included into that.
Well, and a lot of those
Using
But he's acting like that the Catholic priests have a monopoly on pedophilia.
Well, I mean,
that-
if you actually look at the data, like a Catholic priest is no more, likely to rape a child or something like that, or molest a child than any other adult or married man. So,
that
I mean,
and
if you actually look at it, you are 100 times more likely to be molested by someone in a secular school system than you are by a Catholic priest.
That is true. I do remember reading that. The
That and-
statistics show that more pedophilia incidents happen in these other settings. But the Catholics always get far more media attention.
Yeah, so I mean,
well, yeah, and
this
also
whole,
many of these.
even you have guys like Brandon O'Neill, who's an atheist Marxist, who says like this whole bashing of Catholics is over exaggerated.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Also,
First of all, those priests should be thrown in jail, and the key should be thrown away. Let's just put that out there. These are disgusting people that should be locked in jail for the rest of their life.
But here's the thing. Most of these Catholic pedophiles, Catholic Church pedophile scandals, they happen post-sexual revolution. So
that we know of, I don't want to.
Huh?
I mean, with that we know of. I mean, the problem is that there were Catholic bishops that covered up. That was horrible, and so
let me give you a story. Let me give you a little history lesson. In Nazi Germany, there was this propaganda campaign against the Catholic priests there. This was known as the pedophile priest campaign. And the Gestapo, this is Nazi Germany after all. The Nazi state security services would bug the churches and wiretap and would and everything to try to find quote unquote pedophile priests. But what happened is that I think by 1939 they had to call it off because there was no evidence whatsoever of any pedophile priests in the Catholic Church, even though this was Nazi Germany, where everything was it was a police state and the Nazi authorities could do whatever they want to obtain evidence.
Right. Pedophiles it boils my blood.
Well, I mean, here's another thing that people don't really get. Wait, here's another thing that people don't typically get. Like, pedophilia is actually going through with the act of actually, molesting a child, but
Brass, don't repeat that salon crap. That's
well, I mean, no, but wait, let me just say this, like a lot of these cases like that get mentioned up, it's not actual sexual acts. Sometimes it's as little as just flirting. And
I still would be against that.
I think it's still wrong. I'm not saying it, but I'm saying like how the media over exaggerates what it is.
Well, I'm with you on that. It's the Catholics have gotten far too much attention on this. It's the secular pedophilia are almost entirely ignored.
These scandals.
Well, I mean, it all has to do because of two things. One, it's to get money from the Catholic Church, and two, because the Catholic Church has to pay off people in order to do damage control, so they're paying off the media and stuff like that. So they have an incentive to do that. And two, it's to take advantage of a history, America's long history of anti-Catholicism, which, you have to remember, just little over 60 years ago, it was considered political suicide to come out as a Catholic and run for office.
Yeah.
In 1938, they actually had the first ever Catholic guy tried to run for president, and they got him disqualified and cost him the race simply because he was Catholic. So, yeah, I mean, America has a long history of anti-Catholicism, and the media is just playing on that.
All in all, though,
that's one of the reasons the Irish were persecuted 100 years ago, along with blacks and Chinese, and yeah.
1920s, the president actually helped the anti-religious regime of Plutarco Elias Calles in Mexico, and so he helped. And what he did is that I think they hired the Ku Klux Klan to patrol the borders to prevent Mexican Catholics from coming in.
Another funny thing is people don't get heard about is fun fact about America. We've never had a Catholic we've never had a Catholic president that's actually served his terms to full.
Yeah, Kennedy was killed before.
Yeah, we only had one Catholic president, and he got assassinated. And he actually had to come out beforehand.
It didn't have to do.
I'm not ran by the Vatican. I'm just a guy that just happens to be Catholic.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with Catholicism, though.
Let's get back on subject, though.
Yeah.
I mean, all in all, there's no evidence that shows that intrinsic religiosity increases pedophilia or the ability to, or the desire to cover it up.
Well,
I'm not showing evidence. It's nothing new of him, so.
Right.
In Christian scriptures, where besides Christ treating children as a representation of perfection,
it said that those who harm children should have milestones around their neck.
Well, yeah. Another thing is it all comes from a misreading of "Suffer thy children come unto me."
Well, and they would try and quote, I think it's it's either in Deuteronomy or Exodus, but they take certain passages without proper
they'll take a verse of Numbers 31. I think it's Numbers 31.
Yeah.
Out of context. It's completely out of context, but let's move
on. Yeah, TJ Kurt tried to pull that, but let's move on.
A world where children aren't scared of eternal damnation in hell just for being themselves. They can go out free, love who they want to, and not have to worry about burning forever in a lake of fire.
First, I'd like to add, when you look at this guy on the Non Sequitur show, his beard is quite amazing, but
that was a while ago, but yeah.
Oh, well, I must not be keeping up. Okay.
Anyway, I kind of sympathize with that, because that can be traumatizing to a child to have them think that they'll be burning it up.
I personally
suffer and burn for eternity, but that's not what hell's like.
Well, I don't even think children go to hell. That's my personal belief, but
the actual church teaching is the age of accountability, that you don't go to hell just for being a child and not knowing, because your brain is not fully developed. You've not.
Some reformers sort of make me mad because because of the sin of Adam, because their quote psalm or whatever. I was born into sin, and then if a child dies, they go to hell because of that. I don't hold to that at all. I think that's the false doctrine.
Well, also, is there any data which shows that religion causes children to feel guilty, filled with fear? Actually, no. I mean, DRes83 did a video a while ago where he did a 5-minute video where he responded to Dawkins on this. Cited all these studies which show religion actually helps children, helps them feel better, encourages, better studying in schools, all these sorts of things. So then where's the data which shows that it actually causes these terrible effects in children?
Yeah, you have on papers. I'm not challenging the papers or whatnot. Just anecdotally speaking, I would agree with this guy that there are people who definitely do that, Christian fundamentalists and so on. And I think they are completely in the wrong.
Right, I would agree with you on that.
And hell's no more a dimension of fire and brimstone than heaven is a wedding banquet or a vineyard.
Right.
Yeah.
Idioms being used.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think we can just move on to Professor Stick here. By the way, Mr. Brass, your picture when you responded to him, I laughed at your picture. Well, we can move on.
Brass.
A world where religion didn't teach that prayer or communicating with God would fix all of the world's problems. For example,
What doesn't teach it?
natural disasters such as the recent hurricanes, people would potentially donate more money instead of gathering for prayer. Let's stick to what we know actually helps, instead of communicating to a God we can't prove is there and who supposedly created the hurricane to begin with.
No one claimed God creates hurricanes. It's called a fallen world and fallen ecosystem and so on.
And first of all, the studies always show religious people are the ones who are donating more of their time and money to situations like this. And no one said that religious says prayer fixes everything. That's not in the Bible.
They go along with the popular myth that praying is asking what you want and having what you want when you want it.
Like a genie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Mr. Brass's analogy when he was.
This was such a straw man. It was an utter straw man, though.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, no, you go. You were going to say something about me.
Well, I just like how you sort of responded to when you respond to Shannon Q and Apologia. I think you may have misunderstood the question because when I was on their podcast, I sort of understood it a little better. But I like how you respond by saying God isn't a genie and so on, and how they were doing it and so on. But go ahead. That was just my.
Well, here's the thing. Like, from all my studying, of the theology of the Bible, never once. Because here's the thing. You can easily disprove this. If prayer is asking for something and getting it, then why did none of the disciples of Jesus actually try that? Because they were tortured, beaten, and everything. And you don't think that they had once said, "Oh God, help me out, please."
To gain your life, you must lose and take up your cross. Yeah.
So so apparently, they didn't think that God was just some genie where they just prayed to him and got what they wanted. Like that, prayer is just about recognizing God's authority.
Even if it was asking for what you want, it would still be answered in 3 different ways: yes, no, and wait.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think when you read the book of Job, it shows God's sovereignness and so on.
Basically the gist of that, the moral of the book of Job. It's basically an FU to people who think God owes them anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
move on.
What were you going to say, IP?
Let's move on.
Okay. Rachel O2.
Imagine a world where morals and rules aren't dictated by ancient texts, but are allowed to develop and evolve as society changes.
No, that's a terrible idea. No. Morality should not evolve. There's something called moral progress that Thomas Nagel talks about, that we're sort of progressing more towards a better understanding of objective moral law. But evolving morality is a terrible idea.
She's one of the good ones, but this argument's terrible.
Well, she is one of the. I know she's one of the good ones, but it's just assuming moral relativism.
What's the difference between our society and Nazi Germany? That's my point, because they both evolved.
I also point out, we also went into this before, on the evolutionary argument against naturalism. You can apply that to the morality, and how can I be sure that murder is really wrong and not just a useful survival guide?
What if society starts accepting pedophilia?
Well, in some places they are.
How do you know? How do you know how morality is going to evolve if you're assuming it's just going to evolve in the way you want it to?
How is the lack of
where you think it's okay to murder people with Down syndrome, or just get rid of it, sterilize people with Down syndrome? What if the Nazis would have won and they wanted to evolve in their way? The idea of evolving morality on relativism, it's far moral progress is maybe is what she's thinking of. Maybe if she's assuming that, I don't know, moral progress is the idea there is objective moral law, and we as a society are just trying better to understand it, to conform to the moral law. That's what moral progress generally means, but it's different than the idea of moral evolution, which is not a good thing.
Well, if I may give some props to, I often don't do it, but I will give props to guys like Stefan Molyneux, Sam Harris.
Well, I don't even know if he's an atheist anymore.
No, wait, Stefan Molyneux is an atheist.
No, not Harris. He puts on airs of being a super intellectual.
I'm saying Sam Harris, Rationality Rules, Stefan Molyneux, and Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk. There's some of the few atheists that actually do believe in objective morality.
Yeah, they just of course they're
not moral people so much as moralizers.
Yeah.
Well, no, atheists are moral.
So, although, if you actually look into Kyle Kalinske and which is Rationality Rules' basis for morality, it's the same as Sam Harris. Her human flourishing is what is good.
Rationalizing atheism's 99% of his worldview is based on Harris.
Yeah.
That's his priest, you could say.
Well, let's move on.
I'm sure if he wanted to, he would want Sam Harris to. Never mind. You could probably tell the joke I was going to say, but I'm not going to say it. Okay, let's move on.
Imagine how far along medicine would be if religion hadn't stepped in the way of stem cell research.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my God!
My focus is actually stem cell. There's so many things that stem cells can do. I myself took a bullet to the knee. And I was told last year that there's now a new therapy to basically regrow my knee. All pain would stop. My nerve cells would grow back. And my doctor told me that if it wasn't for all the blocking advances, this probably could have happened years ago. It's absolutely infuriating, the fact that someone's religious views have basically kept me and others in pain. I mean, this is something that could stop pain. It could help with cancer. They're doing research on stem cells versus cancer. I think about things like Huntington's disease and Parkinson's. Could stem cells help in that? How far would we have been if this field was not grinded to a halt by the religious? How much farther would we be? And if it were to suddenly stop, no more opposition, imagine how far we could go. Imagine a world.
Yeah, except the slaughter of innocent children. If that's the price, then it's not worth it.
Well, in China, they're making all kinds of medical advances. You want to know the reason why? Group of a certain religious group that they could experiment on, the Falun Gong practitioners. There's actually this Chinese doctor who claims he can do a head transplant sometime in the next couple of years. How do you think he's able to do that? Because he has dozens upon dozens of bodies to experiment on.
Well, and also another thing is in regards to stem cell research, I hold to the position that we need to invest more on adult stem cells.
Right, and
I think they're less likely to be rejected by the body, and there are far more benefits to using it in cancer research.
In many religions,
and embryonic stem cells. Here's the thing: embryonic stem cells have been known to cause tumors. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so
and I've heard that many religious people do support adult, the non-embryonic stem cell research.
Right.
So,
absolutely,
So here's another thing too. Imagine how far this is the whole using of embryonic stem cells goes into ethics. Because imagine how far we would progress if we just said F you to human experimentation and just started right away experimenting on people like the Nazis did. They forget to mention that a lot of our research on twins, our initial research on twins, comes from the Nazis and their experiments.
That was my point with the whole Falun Gong thing, Brass. That was my point with the whole Falun Gong thing.
Yeah, and so the Nazis made great scientific advances by simply saying F you to human experimentation and, just rushing
ethics.
right into it.
Yeah, you ethics. They said ethics.
Yeah, and they just did child experiments on twins, and look how far we've progressed with that. So, if you're saying, ethics aren't important, and that we should just simply go for whatever advances society, then you're going to fall into the problem of eugenics, which is precisely why a lot of people were into eugenics.
Mm-hmm.
Because they believed it was going to make scientific progress.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's kind of as a straw man, and he kind of made that off the cuff comment that religion holds up all of medicine. I mean, there's no data once again that shows that intrinsic religiosity or religion as a whole has been holding up medicine. Historically, religions have been on the forefront when it comes to setting up hospitals and
I was going to say, in whole Europe, you had the hospitals established by Christian monks and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought it was funny when I was debating Matt Dillhunty. He argued there's places where they only have a hospital, and I'm like, that just shows that Catholics are going places where there are no hospitals and establishing hospitals.
So I mean, it's just stupid. They have no real science on their. They have no real science.
Yeah,
and they don't really understand it.
Without honor killing, where gays don't fear for their lives, and where women everywhere are given equal respect and an equal voice, and are treated like human beings rather than assimilating faceless into an ocean of silent black trash bags.
That's clearly just. I hope he's just talking about Islam there.
Yeah, he's talking about Islam.
Yeah, well, we addressed that.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think we're going to disagree with the Sharia political nonsense.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The whole Shahira. I mean, I keep saying Shakira law, but
where hits don't lie.
Yeah, I'm saying Shahira law. Like, it gets a lot of negative. Like, it gets over exaggerated. Like the number of they make it seem like someone's getting their hand cut off every single day there. When you actually look at the data, no one says that. In fact, it's actually a rare occurrence because when they use Muhammad's teachings, Muhammad believed in, mercy. So the number of actual hand cutting offs and stuff like that is actually over exaggerated.
Well, and I also hear that Saudi Arabia is actually reforming itself.
Well, yeah. Women can finally drive now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would recommend.
And now their car accident rate is going up sky high.
Progress. We can finally drive.
I'd recommend David Wood's videos. He's an ex-atheist Christian. He does a lot of great videos on Islam.
Oh yeah.
And goes really deep into Sharia law. It's not a good system.
I'm not saying it's a good system. I'm just saying there is times when it gets over exaggerated.
Well, it's like with the Inquisition, how a lot of atheists exaggerate the inquisitorial laws of medieval Europe. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of horror, but there was also a lot of laws that a lot of the European Union courts still draw from the Inquisitions.
And anytime anyone says Inquisition, I get Mel Brooks stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we can finish up here.
It's already finished. It's the end credits.
Well, what was there something else someone want to say?
No, this is the end credits.
Okay.
In conclusion, you can probably stop the video. So, in conclusion, there is no data which shows the world will be better without religion. It's just assumed.
They just want us to take it on faith.
The thing of it is, many atheists believe in the whole secularization hypothesis, aka the myth of progress, which is this idea that society will become more modernized if religion is eradicated. And you see that in many French revolutionary thinking and communist thinking, and in new atheist thinking too. So most scholars don't believe in it.
Yeah, and it's absolutely is rejected nowadays. But the only data they do is they cite these marginal cases where there's some religious person who does something bad, and they then assume they therefore see religion causes all that. Okay,
well, I mean,
you need more than citing marginal cases to show that the net negative is worse. You got to do more than that. You just can't ignore all the positive that studies show us and say, "See, we'd be so much better without religion." No, you need actual data. You just can't cite these marginal cases and assume that religion is causing that. That's a classic attribution error. I mean, there's dozens of variables that go into people's evil decision makings, You just can't blame it all on intrinsic religion. The one thing I get from this video, it just seems like they lumped everything together they don't like and said, see, religion causes it. It's like pseudoscience. Like the one guy in the middle was talking about pseudoscientific practices. It's almost sort of like they're just blaming everything they possibly can on religion. Like everything bad in the world must happen because of religion, but there's just no data.
Yeah, because there are adherents of the secularization thesis.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Well, they all commit the fallacy of hasty generalization because they quote like a few things, and then overall religion is evil and so on, which is just false.
It's just stupid because like none of us here would say that religion has not done bad things or there's not harmful religions out there. Like even I'll admit that there are harmful religions, but noticing that there's harmful religions out there does nothing to say that all religions are harmful.
Yeah. Just like how there are some harmful atheists doesn't mean that atheism itself is well, as a worldview.
It's like judging all of atheists based on what Jeffrey Dahmer or Jim Jones did. And Jim Jones was an atheist.
Or North Korea, North Korea has 65 to 70,000 Christians in turn.
They're like, no. Jim Jones was a preacher. He's a priest. He fed all those people. And no, he was like, he said, "There's no God. There's no heaven up there. We need to make it here and now. You want me to be your Christ? I'll be your Christ."
He founded the People's Temple.
Yeah,
which was like some weird Marxist ideology.
You want me to be your God? I'll be your God.
Yeah, and he also said, he said, you don't believe in no Sky Daddy. So
yeah, and that's recorded in the FBI reports too.
So like, I don't know. It's just like they're using the same phrases word by word of what these other groups do, and they have such a cognitive dissonance where they don't notice it.
Well, I need to take off, but I appreciate you guys having me on. I need to go.
No problem, IP. I'll make sure to give you that the studies I was telling you because you asked for it.
Yeah, go ahead and please give those to me. All right, talk to you guys later.
Peace.
All right, see ya.
Oh, do you want me to end the stream?
Yeah. Sure.
Oh, that's the end of the
video.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, one guy in the chat says, "Can we watch another video, please? The stream is great."
Well, unfortunately, I have to work.
Yeah,
we will next time.
We had IP.
Yeah, IP.
Yeah, one stupidity at a time.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to give IP the whole, the whole superstition thing.
Yeah, and IP,
obviously we're all believing in superstition, but
Well, yeah, it's funny as hell because like with me, like you'd be surprised of how often I get the whole Sky Daddy routine and saying like the atheists like they get on us for being generalizing atheists, but yet whenever I talk to the atheists, they tend to generalize me as a young Earth creationist. That is all Christians.
Yes.
And I'm a freaking genius, you damn idiots.
Talk about Sky Daddies. I don't believe in any fucking Sky Daddy.
Yeah, and IP, if you're out there, you need any historical data, I got it, so I'm your man there.
Yes,
everything I said for.
Stupid. So
yeah, the Sky Daddy trope needs to end.
Well, yeah, and you just have to remember. Well, Indian, you're obviously you're an Indian spiritualist, so you believe in the Sky Father and the tree goddess. Well, to be fair, even that is more rational.
I believe in the Great Spirit, which is the Native American version of God.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, you believe in Brother Bear.
Yeah, I should be dancing with the bears and singing in the rain and.
I just think it's just, this whole atheism movement is pretty stupid. Although I will say this, the Native American beliefs are still more rational than atheism.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Perun worship is far more rational than, new atheism. Perun was a Slavic deity in Kievan Rus, which was medieval Russia.
Yeah, he was the synchronization of Zeus, Odin, Thor, and Elijah.
Yeah.
What is so funny? Every god they try and reference for, their 3,000 god argument, if you just define atheism as a lack of belief, even if one god has a 1% chance probability of being true, it's still more probable than a psychological state.
I've always said that. I like when they ask, well, which god? Then I'm like, the only god you ever bitch about, apparently.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stream now. So thank you for watching, everyone. Please leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with someone. And if you have any other video suggestions we can respond to, then I'd be happy to set that up. So thanks for watching, and God.